Hey, everybody, we're going to get started in just about 2 minutes. Just waiting for the live stream to kind of start up and for people to stream in. And we'll be going at about 12:01 or so Eastern Time. All right. All right, Jack, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
We're born ready. Okay. Yeah. Bang, trash.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's
hilarious.
Probably. I was hoping they would be done by now, but
what we need is
if anybody hears.
Yeah. We hear that? Yeah, that'd be good too. I remember I went to Boston. My first business trip, quote unquote, abroad from Philly was up in Boston, and I was like 24, so I had to get someone to rent a car for me in their name because I was too young to rent a car.
And oh, that's right. I actually kind of forgot about that. Yeah.
Yep. So you may find that out someday. But I was at a hotel. I had to drive in a snowstorm because it was Boston in like November, and out of nowhere, some giant snowstorm showed up. The roads were paved. I was driving in a foot of snow off and on, slid my way into the parking lot. And the next morning, everything was plowed. I'm like, this is a better town for plowing snow. They know what they're doing here. All right, yeah, we're getting started in just a minute, folks. And my notes here with our guest today, Jack Lazorchak. Jack, we've worked together a couple of years. Is that how we say your last name?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Right.
Kind of rhymes.
Mm-hmm. Jack Lazorchak. TechChat Tuesday. All right. Okay, well, we'll get started then. Welcome, everybody, to TechChat Tuesdays for Tuesday. As I bring my clock down, October 13th, 2020, I'm Ken Rimple, and with me today I have Jack Lazorchak. He is a consultant at Chariot Solutions, and we are here to talk with him about all things that are behind him in his view. Move out of the way for a second, Jack. Look at those keyboards. We're talking mechanical, put it together yourself keyboards today. That's our big topic. But before we talk about that, I want to go through some news articles or events at least that we have coming up. So first of all, I know I've talked about this for a couple weeks, but next week is the big week. Java at 25, and let me just share my screen here. Java at 25, we have a retrospective of what we've done at Chariot for the past, well, we're, I think, 14 or 15 years old now. So we've worked with it, and also before that, our consultants have worked with Java a lot as well. So Java's always been part of Chariot. And so what we're doing here is we're first starting by sitting down with our CTO, Aaron Mulder, and myself, and Tracy Wilson-Rossman is running a question and answer session. We're going to talk about how we had now in our second decade of working with Java. And for many of us, it's been almost 25 years of working with Java. So we'll be talking about that at first, talking about how we started, why we selected Java in the first place for our projects, and what kinds of technologies we've gone through over the years, and why Java is still important to us. We also will talk about the Java community itself, open source, some of the things that have worked or haven't worked, that kind of thing. So that's the first about 45 minutes of the program. And this is all free, brought to you by the Chariot Solutions consulting team and Philly Jug. And we have a very special guest, Brian Getz. He is the Java language architect at Oracle. And he actually is a good friend of Chariot's. We've brought him on the Philly Emerging Technologies for the Enterprise Conference. I think it's twice, maybe 3 times. I can't remember. But not only has he been a keynote speaker for us, I think it was 2017, but he also has just come to be a regular speaker and mingle with the crowd because he likes the sizes of the conference and how we communicate with each other and how it's not a really heavily vendor-sponsored conference. It's very developer-centric. So he's going to be speaking about where Java is headed and what he's working on in the Java language, as much as he can share with us, and just in general his thoughts on how Java has been going and what the overall principles of it are. We'll bring up topics, the various JDK projects that are out there. For example, we'll look at language enhancements that are coming soon, any other new features and other topics that might come up. And then after that, we're going to have happy hour. We are giving everyone discounts for Java-related drinks since it's Java. First of all, La Colombe is a Philadelphia-based coffee company, and you can ship coffee from there. Very good stuff. So we'll have discounts for that, for the happy hour, for you to drink coffee. Or if your tastes are more in the beer area, we've got Workhorse Brewing. They have a vanilla coffee porter, which I am looking to get my hands on. So we'll send up discount codes about 2 weeks, actually probably now, prior to the event. You can order it, get it in your hands, and enjoy some Java-based drinks during the event. So to sign up, we'll put that in the notes, but it's java-at-25.heysummit.com. I also have a shortcut for it at Chariot Solutions. Wow. I learned to type just now. Java at 25. That's the other shortcut that works. ChariotSolutions.com/java-at-25. And that will take you to the same thing. And you can go register. Again, free event. Please join us. We already have a lot of people signed up, but since it's an online thing, we're not really that limited in how many people we can have. We'd love to hear you and see you. And please join our happy hour. The next thing on Chariot's blog is a 15 Minutes With series entry. So Tom Purcell was interviewed by Pete Fleming, who was our head of product and UX design. So Tom Purcell, just like Jack, is another talented consultant at Chariot. And he is there to talk on this 15 Minutes With about how developers and designers work together and how it's better when developers and designers collaborate as opposed to kind of throwing things over the fence and hoping for the best with a hack together style sheet. So that's a really good thing to check out. That is a video that you can enjoy here. Just a quick side note, if you go to youtube.com/Chariot Solutions, you'll see we have a whole bunch of content here. You can go to our playlists. Our Tech Chat Tuesdays are all archived there. So every one of these goes up about a day later, and you may be watching it from there. So thank you for joining us later. And you can also from there just bookmark it and come back later. Or you can look for the podcast subscription to our Chariot TechCast, either in the Apple iTunes podcast store or on Amazon or Spotify. But if you just Google Chariot Solutions TechCast, you'll find that as a podcast for your podcatcher, of which Tech Chat Tuesdays and I believe 15 Minutes With, I may be wrong, are part of. We also have all of our Philly Emerging Technologies for the Enterprise conferences dating back to 2015, I think it is. Oh, even earlier than that. All archived on YouTube. So you can go to this and you could see all the talks from all of our speakers. And, we archive as much as we possibly can. So it's all free. We don't require you to register. That's our service to you in the community. And I think that's it. Oh, one more thing. So Tracy Wilson-Rossman has posted another article at Forbes under the Forbes Women section. So she has the COVID-19 outbreak can changing consumer habits during the pandemic demand a digital shift. And that is also something, apparently I've been searching for amplifiers and guitars, but gee, do I have a hobby? But anyway, so her topic there, she just posted. So this is talking about how, the shift to online for everybody means you really have to focus on a digital shift as well. Goodbye. And that's that. Okay, so let's get out of this stuff and bring our guest to the fore. Jack, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Likewise, pleasure to be here, Ken.
Jack, tell us a little bit about yourself. So, number one, I know you've been at Chariot. Is it 4 years now? 3 years?
It's a little bit over 3 years now.
Okay, so you've been at Chariot for 3. Let's talk about your pre-Chariot days first. Where did you come from? What was your background coming into this?
Yeah, so essentially, I went to the University of Pittsburgh, met my then girlfriend, now fiance there. I worked for some startups in the Pittsburgh area for a few years after I graduated while my fiance was in grad school. And then once that was kind of over, she was like, hey, she's originally from the Philadelphia area. So when that was over, she was kind of like, hey, I'm going to, move back home. So I was like, yeah, all right, I can, give Philly a try. And then from there, I applied to Chariot, and it was actually the only place I applied to out there, and I kind of knew I wanted it. So, whenever I got offered the job, I was like, "Oh, this made this move very easy." So,
great.
Yeah.
So you were, you had learned the Java stuff and Spring stuff in your prior organizations.
Yeah,
so you've been doing a lot of. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. So you've been doing a lot of learning, kind of on the side to catch up with things as you were first kind of thrown into your first couple jobs, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So you've been doing a lot of time learning, but then you kind of decided. At some point,
so I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can go into it a little bit. It was it's probably really what I should have covered whenever I went through that.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I guess I for a second kind of forgot to talk about programming as well, but
you program? Wait a minute, yeah.
Yeah. So mainly, fresh out of college, whenever a computer science degree obviously will help you understand how to code, but it's not always the most kind of practical education. So I felt like whenever I got out and I'd started working for these startups, I'd known, I knew Java very well, but it's the first time I was ever using the Spring framework or Spring Boot or anything. So I kind of took a lot of time on my own to, learn more about it and, kind of just accelerate the pace, I guess, at which I was learning it, which I feel I did a pretty good job at, especially at the kind of first startup that I was there. I put a lot of time in at night and stuff, just making sure I understood that. And I was also using like Angular JS at the time. And so I was also kind of, learning some of that, trying to learn some AWS and cloud stuff. Then sort of eventually I felt like I was at least at a place where I didn't have to do that as much all the time, but I still just enjoyed learning about technology and learning things. And there's actually a former coworker of ours, Jeff, who had a keyboard, and then I was kind of playing around on his, and I was like, this is actually really cool. So I ended up buying one from WASD Keyboards, which is a website you can go and just kind of customize your, keyboard layout. I actually have it right up there. If you see it, it looks kind of like the casino thing. That's not the original keycaps I got on it. They were very loud. The original ones were like loud in color, and in hindsight, it was just me being like, "Yeah, let me just throw all the crazy colors I can at this and not think about it." Which, I mean, it was neat and I enjoyed it. But that had sort of led me to look into more about mechanical keyboards, and turns out there's this whole kind of community around it of people that build them and do all these things, and that was sort of what led me to start wanting to build them.
I remember we all kind of coveted that keyboard when we had it out.
Yeah.
It was really cool, like different colors and stuff, and it probably had the loudest clicks there were.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. So that was your gateway in, right? You saw that,
right,
you're like,
yeah.
oh.
Yeah. And it's funny because Jeff had actually warned me and told me that he had a friend who built mechanical keyboards, and he was like, yeah, he doesn't really think you should get into this, because I mean, it's not that it's anything too bad. It's just that it's, people, I guess that here's the way I would describe it, is that, mechanical keyboards, that's sort of a niche community, right? That's a thing that, and this is, I guess, sort of a big point I'd like to make, is that it's like, why should you care, I guess, about mechanical keyboards? And I don't necessarily even think you should. Like, if you're fine with the keyboard that you already have, I mean, today's Prime Day, and I looked on Amazon, and you can get a cheaper mechanical keyboard or just a normal kind of standard run of the mill keyboard for like $15 or less than that, Yep. And so if you like those, there's really like no reason to switch, though. I would kind of argue a little bit that I think the fun in it is sort of building something in a way that's, I don't want to say art, but it's like, kind of something between an art and a science, where kind of when you're done, it's neat, and it's something that you kind of use. So I had started looking into building mechanical keyboards, of which there is there's a lot of different ways you can go about building a mechanical keyboard. You can actually, on one side of the spectrum, you don't have to solder at all. So they sell like hot swap PCBs now. And in the hot swap PCBs, that actually allows you to switch out your switches at will. Kind of,
like a snap-in grid. Is that what it basically is?
Yeah, right. It's pretty much like a.
Let me back you up, because I want to start talking about the first one. So let's talk chronologically. Go grab that keyboard.
I will.
Yeah, let's start there. So this is what Jack did when he first started. Show us.
Yeah. So this is called hand wiring a keyboard, and I know this goes out to the audio thing as well. So I'll try to be descriptive, but it's pretty much, there's no actual circuit board. So this would be the case where if you want to build a keyboard that does not have a layout that already exists for it, that would be the most kind of common use case. Actually, for the keyboard I ended up building, there are a few PCBs out there, but I was sort of already down the road of wanting to learn how to hand wire it. I'd seen this on a post on Geekhack, which, if you're like super into mechanical keyboards, you definitely know that website. There's people post up stuff on there about, stuff, how to build keyboards. They'll do like even group buys where people will design some part of a keyboard, and then they'll have a limited press of that thing and kind of run it. And there's some
site. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some really, really cool stuff people sell in there. It also gets very expensive when you want to start buying. And it's actually, that was one of the interesting things I learned, is that, so like the case itself, that's one of the most kind of, the sky's the limit on what you could spend on on building a custom keyboard case. So this one right here, like, is, and I guess I should probably kind of explain some of what I'm talking about. So the PCB, or the circuit board, is just the, logical. I feel like anyone who's listening probably know what a PCB is. I don't know. But if not,
surprised.
Okay, no, that's honestly great. Like, I wasn't, I'm not trying to dock anyone's knowledge or anything here. That's the
entry point. If you don't know see, if you don't know PCBs, that's it.
Yeah, see, that's not even an entry point. If you don't, hey, I think that's the, and the thing I guess I kind of want to mention quick too is that I don't. I could say something wrong here, like I don't even, I guess, look at myself as a, and I know obviously that would be fine, but a point to anybody watching, listening, is that, you don't really need to know everything about it to build this or to get into this. And it's okay, I guess, to kind of just, take what you want from it and build that or whatever. But for this, there's the main parts of a keyboard are like the keycaps. So that's the actual plastic that goes over top of the switch. There is, I'll pull off a switch. I'll pull off the keycap. Underneath of the keycap is the switch, which is actually what does the kind of, so this is like a Cherry MX Brown switch.
Oh, hold on. I'm going to switch you over here. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Now you got the full screen. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that's a Cherry MX Brown switch.
So it's a type of switch. There's the Cherry MX is like a switch manufacturer with different types of switches. Right.
So in Cherry MX is actually the design of that switch is, it's no longer, I don't remember exactly. It's something where the patent expired on it. So now any company can make switches in the style of like Cherry MX, which is why if you get into mechanical keyboards, you'll see that the overwhelming majority of switches available are going to kind of be, more MX Cherry based than, say, like Matthias. There's other switches out there that you can get, but generally speaking, you're going to find less keycaps available for them, and might be a little bit more expensive for stuff, but in other words,
just kind of pull you back a little bit. So in other words, if you went down the road of like designing your keyboard and using the Cherry MX standard, so to speak, or accepted social standard that they all came up with, whatever, because the patent's out, but there's a lot of companies doing it, you can find keycaps that fit the switch.
Correct. Yeah, a lot of keycaps available. Yeah.
So this looks like a good one. The Keyboard Company has a nice blog article, just as we're going through here, as a reference for the different types of switches that are out there. So maybe that'll help a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the brown, the red, the yellow, the black, or I don't know if there is a yellow, but I made that up myself.
No, I think not to mention, like, all these different companies have different colors of them. So like my personal favorite now are like Zelios, which is it's like a 67 grams of force out of, they have 4 different ones of it. It's purple. And I actually took, so this is the keyboard that I've been kind of using for work. I took apart each switch and then like lubed up the inside of them. I kind of read online that, I know. I kind of read on various forums and such that this was sort of
just like better typing experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Was it more of like getting the clicking to calm down, or was it more of it just lasts longer or feels better as you're tapping the key kind of thing?
I would say it feels better. So and I could kind of get into the specifics of what Zelios like specifically did, but it might be they essentially, so Gateron is another switch maker, and they essentially they buy up their like external housing of that switch, and then they kind of replace the spring, and then they replace like the actual thing that the keycap sits on, the stem, I think it's called, and they kind of made it fit in there a little bit better, I guess is the kind of best way to describe it. But it's a lot more of a tactile feel, I would say. I personally like the tactile switches. The clicky ones would get me murdered in an office, or even here when my whenever my fiance would hear me in here on, if I had like Cherry Blues, for example. I mean, those are understandably the They're very, very loud. And then there's also the linear switches, which don't have any tactile bump and they don't have any audible click whatsoever, which, like I said, I'm not personally a fan of, but I know a ton of people who love them and use those.
Now, as you're starting to experiment, I remember you did a talk for us a while back.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if you have it laying around, but there was a little sampler that you made or got that had the different types of switches on. I don't know if you have that laying around or not.
I do, actually. It's like right here.
You ordered that, right, from a company?
I did order this because it's almost, I guess, I was going to build one and I didn't want to go in not knowing kind of the different ways. But so, yeah, this is I'm not used to the reversed camera. Let's see.
There you go.
So, yeah, this is a Cherry Clear, which is what's on that. So, like, if you're looking at switches, there's going to be a couple of main things you're looking at to kind of know what it's about. So is it tactile? Is it, tactile, linear, or clicky? And I'm sure there's other words for that, but I think that pretty much sums it up. And then from there, it's like the force in which you actually have to press down on it to get it to activate it. And I had always thought that I wouldn't like the heavier ones, but the one I have now is pretty heavy, and I actually enjoy it quite a bit. So yeah, like a Cherry MX Brown is the tactile. The Cherry MX Red is like the base, the lightest level linear, and then the clicky would be the blue. That's the Cherry MX Blue. That's that one.
So do a lot of the switch manufacturers have these like sample things you can order just to take a look at them?
Yeah, and then I mean, there's even ones that you can order that will get, ones from a ton of different manufacturers. So like it used to be called Mass Drop, but now it's called drop.com.
Okay.
That's like you do group buys and stuff like that on there. They'll usually have some kind of like massive keycap tester, which I mean, I've sort of wanted to get one of those, but then at the same time, it's, I've
yeah, that could be another rabbit hole. Like, now with these switches, order more. Yeah. You ever hear the term gas, by the way?
No.
It's my favorite thing because I get into these hobbies of things I'm really into.
Yeah.
Like you saw the amps scrolling by. I'm like, oh, I need a good tube amp. And then I got a good tube amp. And then I know you're a musician too. So
yeah.
So it's like, it's called gear acquisition syndrome.
Oh,
and I want to just let you know you're not alone.
Heard that, but
it's hilarious. So in photography,
I feel that.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw this out there because Becca will have a good laugh too, our producer. In photography, there's a whole problem with gear acquisition syndrome. It's not even a problem, but it's a disease you fall into.
Yeah.
And there's a special like group of photographers that have, I can't find it right now, that have rangefinder cameras that like they don't have an SLR long lens. It's all these small things, and they get ridiculously expensive, like Leica cameras and stuff like that. So what I pasted in there is like you think this is a bad situation. You could see like crazy people buy cameras for $10,000. I'm like, who are you people?
Oh wow,
it gets nuts. But but a camera is a box with a lens that you let light through, so it could be as simple as a box camera with a pinhole. So
yeah.
Sky's the limit on any of this stuff. But I completely understand. You start crafting, like you seem to me, Jack, like you're a craftsman. You've become a craftsman about things that you're obsessed with.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, yeah.
So you started with the soldering, right? You started with the matrix that you wired up yourself, and then you put a chip in there to decode it or what have you.
Right.
But then the next keyboard you built, or the next movement that you went down for keyboard building, how do you go from there?
So once I had kind of finished up the hand wiring thing and that had worked, and I was actually so excited to see that it worked. That was kind of one of the things I wanted to mention was I did this as a first soldering project. I literally had to buy a soldering iron to do this, but I'd always kind of wanted to get into a little bit more of the hardware stuff, or I don't really know, I guess understand how to build tech stuff in general. And I just was pretty amazed at how there was so many times whenever I was building this that I was like, I'm going to get to the end and none of this is going to work. And I mean, you kind of test it as you go along with your multimeter or what have you. But nonetheless, I just didn't really think that I was going to, it was just, I was burning stuff as I was going through, but at the end, it all still worked. So I kind of think that was my important takeaway from that, was that soldering and sort of building this kind of stuff is more resilient than I gave it credit for. And also, I don't use this keyboard all the time, so maybe if I did, I wouldn't, feel that way. Maybe I would be like, oh, I've had to resolder 5 of these joints. But,
But to your point, when you built that, it did work. And did you use it at work for a while? I thought you brought it in for a while.
I did, yeah. No, I did use it at work for a while, especially early on there. Whenever I was, I actually think I used it until I built this next one here that
I
I'll
think you
kind of show
did.
off.
I remember seeing it in your office. Yeah.
So actually,
yeah.
you're right. I did use it
See?
for a little while there. Yeah.
You
So then
used what you built. That's better than me. Everything I built, I'm like, no. Let me go buy something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then what I had built after that was I at some point there gotten a 3D printer, to not only try out kind of keyboard stuff, but sort of different tech things in general. I have a lot of various Arduinos and things here that I, either want to turn into something or just kind of wanted to play around with and kind of check out. So, and plus 3D printers are in themselves kind of fun, but I was able to 3D print this. It's a split keyboard, so you have to connect it by.
Hold on, let's put you full screen there.
Okay.
All right. I think I have to, solo you. There we go.
There we go. So
bring that bad boy up there.
I'm not used to the reverse camera. There we go. So you connect them right there by that audio jack kind of, and then.
Oh, okay. So there's an audio jack between the two of them. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Then the case itself is 3D printed. The keycaps are not. You can 3D print keycaps, but at least like in my, I have an Ender 3, which is a fairly cheap 3D printer that you can get, wherever off Amazon or pretty much anywhere 3D printers are sold. And it's fine for like, and I mean, this I sanded and spray painted and hit with a soldering iron right there. And I mean, you can kind of see I'm not a great spray painter.
Oh,
especially,
please. Yeah,
especially in an apartment. I get a little like, okay, I'm like out on my balcony spray painting something, and I'm just like, okay,
this looks good enough. Again. What's he doing? Yeah. He must be crazy. Yeah. All right. So you did that, and then so that one is the matrix, right? You have like a matrix layout on that thing, or
So that's actually what, and this is sort of like every piece of a mechanical keyboard has its own kind of rabbit holes that you can go down. And so like the keyboard, the keycaps actually end up being a lot more important than almost in my opinion, if you're going to build a keyboard, no matter what layout you come up with, you can hand wire it and you can order a custom cutout plate to mount those on. Like that's all fine. But custom keycaps are, I'm not, that would be very hard to do. And the reason is actually because of like keycap profiles. And so like, if you look at some of these that I built, and this is because these are actually going to be like cheaper keycaps, I would say, you'll notice that like it's all flat, right? Like they all have the same kind of profile. So you're going to find something like that for cheaper than you would find something like this set of keycaps right here.
There we go.
Yeah, and so like you can see how
scalloped.
these have. Yeah, right. And so you can kind of see how those, so anytime you have kind of keycaps where each row is going to be differently shaped, it's more kind of preferable for your fingers. That's sort of how you get it to like curve up more towards your fingers and stuff, but it's definitely going to kind of be more expensive.
So I got to tell you a quick story on that. So me being 785 years old, Hobbit years. So when I was a young teen kid, there were no computers for us to use. They were IBM Selectric typewriters and correction fluid. Ooh. And so the gray and the missing hair will give you the clue. But the thing is, I loved typing on a Selectric keyboard, and the tactile thing was a giant piston through the key onto the paper, and you heard.
Oh, really?
Oh, it was beautiful.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. I was going to say, that must have felt so nice.
It felt so cool. It's like, Andromeda Stream, the movie where they had the like teletype going, with like, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. Yeah. So it's like typing like that. So you're busy typing, but you feel every single impact on the paper.
Yeah.
And the keys were organized in such a way. They were these beautiful hard plastic keys that were really like shiny and a little bit smooth, so that it just felt perfect. So you put your fingers on a keyboard all day as a software engineer, you might as well pick something you're going to absolutely enjoy using, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of think that's what sort of made me like love this, or as much as I kind of do, is it made me, I don't know. Yeah, it did kind of make me realize like I already spend a ton of time using a keyboard, and I'm only going to spend more time in this lifetime on a keyboard. So why not
Yep.
kind of make it something that I enjoy and that.
So people actually, I'm just going to throw this in here just for fun. I'm just going on eBay. People will actually pay for an IBM original PC
Oh, yeah.
keyboard because they did them based on this electric typewriter. So this is my long email address. I probably put a whole bunch of my personal codes in my eBay search here. But let me see if I can share this here real quick. Give you an idea of the stuff people do.
I wonder if that's like the buckling spring switch mechanism.
It probably is. Right,
it's very loud, but it does feel quite nice.
Yeah, if you're working at home, here's our little statement here. If you're a writer working at home and you're a journalist and you love a real keyboard feel, my gosh, this is cool too. You know, you can find these keyboards that are original PS2 keyboards from November 91 that have a conversion to USB. And that'll give you a little bit of a sense of like a high quality keyboard because these things were made to outlive a Sherman tank.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah, for sure.
They don't sell them like this anymore. And if they do, they sell them a lot more expensive like this, I'm
Yeah.
sure. But you can still buy a used keyboard for $300 because they made millions and millions of them. But that's just a little side note there. So let me turn off my screen here. So the main thing, right, is that you then went into the split keyboard. You tried different keycaps. You tried did you custom order both sides of that where you went to a website and you custom did a split keyboard and they sent you the grid?
So actually I found I think it was on a website called keeb.io, where they had PCBs for so there's actually some open source kind of keyboard designs out there. Mm-hmm. And for all those open source designs, you can find, parts fairly inexpensive for them. And so like this, for example, I found the PCBs and then I was like, oh, okay. Like it was small enough that I could actually, like, I don't have a huge print volume on my 3D printer. And so this was like the perfect thing actually to 3D print for me because I could 3D print each half separately and it doesn't have to be like together in this thing. And so that was sort of what had led me to doing this one, was actually that it was something that I could 3D print the case for.
So if you're going to do something like that, I know. So it's one of these things where I completely understand the research going into this, and then the paying the money needed to really get good at something like this is. If you looked at it as purely a business transaction, you're like, wait, I spent $800 to build a $150 keyboard.
Right.
But you built it, and you built it to your exact specifications.
Exactly. Yes.
So, like, it's with me with like how many pedals do I go through to find the right sound for my guitar? It's like, oh well. But the thing is, it's the same kind of thing. You're researching and kind of honing your craft by experimenting and doing. Go ahead.
I was actually, because you'd mentioned kind of the cost. It's something that I feel like I get asked about a lot. Is that people will compare it to like building a computer. Yeah. Whereas like building a computer, it's gonna in the end be less expensive than if you just outright bought it. Like that's the opposite of the case for keyboards. I know. I really guess it's just because that you can't when you're buying individual parts, it's more like a keyboard itself becomes inexpensive because of just they're making so many of them.
Exactly.
And, I'd even talked to certain like just machine shops and CNC shops. Like it's my dad works with that kind of stuff all the time. And so I was like, hey, maybe, I could find an easier way to do this. But pretty much not a lot of places were interested if I wasn't making like a ton of them. Like,
if you don't make enough for them to be at volume, it doesn't make sense for them to do it for
exactly.
you. Yeah. So that's interesting. Like the thing you think about nowadays with these keyboards, and especially if you are doing coding every single day, all day, if you use, like, for example, the second most recent MacBook Pros that came out, the ones that aren't out now, where they kind of try to fix the mechanism and it's no longer this weird. Was it the butterfly mechanism they had that was the weird one?
I think so. I think it's the one that I have on my current
But like
laptop.
you press down and it's like maybe a millimeter or two of travel and it's funky. You're like, ow, this hurts. And like over time. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like I personally like not really a fan of that, but
it's uncomfortable. Yeah,
to each their own.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things where you get the depth of travel. Your fingers may not be so fatigued. You can find the right like pressure for your keying. So it's kind of like it's kind of like when people buy ergonomic chairs. This is ergonomic fingertip work. That's really what you're doing. Right. So I don't see this really as a hobby that is. It's not necessarily in adverse to anything else you're researching. It's actually for a good cause for you because you're going to be using a good keyboard that you built that's comfortable for you, that hopefully won't, contribute to any kind of carpal tunnel or pain.
Yeah. I do have a little bit of that. So yeah.
Yeah, it'll help, because you're not
I actually, and I'm not sure if my further travel distance is better or worse for my, wrists or whatever. It's something that I had been, so like this was the first one I built where in the keyboard community, it's called an ortholinear layout. And so the idea is that, so most keyboards you're going to get are staggered like this. I can't say that necessarily, I don't know if the linear layouts are better or worse for your hands. If it's just a matter of personal preference, I've come to really like so this is called a plank, to where you can kind of see, it's like, so, and I'll try to be descriptive for podcast reasons, is it literally just looks like, yeah, I know, same. It literally just looks like,
forget his podcast.
It just looks like a grid of keys. Like, so it's all keys that are just kind of one by one, except in that case for the space bar, that one is, it's like a 2x1 or whatever, but it's a really small kind of gridded layout. So your keys are not staggered. They're, in straight columns. In this plank has, and planks in general, only have 4 rows. They have preonics, which are the same thing with the number row. But what I kind of have grown to like about this, and I actually didn't think that I would like this whenever I had first kind of started looking into keyboards. I saw a lot of people with these smaller keyboards, but I never really have to move my hands. So like there's the, I had to like map out the layers of the kind of, so there's raise and lower. So if you, if you hit raise or lower, and I can't remember, I think raise takes you to numbers, and then lower will take you to the kind of symbols, and it'll transform the layer. And it's certainly a little bit confusing at first, but once you kind of get used to it, I just like not having to really move my hands. And then I have another one that I built here that has no, this is actually this is my daily driver for the time being.
This is you saying, I know the touch typing exactly, and I am a genius.
I don't always. I do not always.
Do you hunt and peck? Where's the dollar sign? Where's the dollar sign?
Yeah, that's the thing, is with like with a lot of the symbols, there's times where I'm just sitting there like backspace. Now I know it's around. I know it's in this general vicinity.
I was okay. And then
sometimes you hit like a shortcut. Oh yeah, and then sometimes I'll hit a shortcut. Like if I bring up my, if I hit accidentally play on my music on my computer one more time, I'm gonna scream. But
all right, so let's see. So let's dive a little bit more now into the crafting of it. So you went to the 3D printer. You're starting to 3D print cases. How do you like? So what were some of the things you had to learn how to do to get your prints to work perfectly, to snap into things? There's got to be a lot there, right?
Oh, okay. In terms of 3D printing, there's quite a bit, and it can get frustrating to say the least at times. But it's for this, it was really, I was just kind of dialing in my 3D printer. I've made like a ton of upgrades to my 3D printer as well. Like, I thought that it was way too loud, so I wanted to install new stepper motor drivers. But then to install new stepper motor drivers, you need to install like a whole new motherboard essentially for your 3D printer.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I actually did. I did. I completely
understand where this is going. Go ahead.
Yeah, but then like, I guess this is kind of, sort of my point, is that I guess I feel like I hand-wired a keyboard. I was like, I hand-wired a keyboard. I could swap out. Like if I got to solder some stuff, that's okay. I can figure it out. And so now it's like silent. I don't know if it's necessarily better. I still think there's some settings I don't fully grasp on my 3D printer. Like, I don't know, every so many layers is still weird. I don't know. Leveling it, that's
physically leveling where the rendering surface is, the drawing surface.
Yeah. So like you actually have to sit there and like eye it out and wait for it to start printing, and then kind of make sure that it's, set correctly and all that. So yeah, I didn't 3D design any of the stuff that this was all kind of open source stuff I found on Thingiverse or what have you, so it's just kind of various websites where you could find stuff and then print it out.
Okay.
But then there are things that I've been working on to where, so sort of my, I guess where I go from here in my keyboardness is I'd like to kind of build one, I don't know, fully maximal, like I spare no expense. Because I have a set of keycaps that I like absolutely love, and that I've just been like waiting to find a keyboard to put them on. But I was like, I'll make this my final foray for
your Jurassic Park,
self,
as it were.
Right.
Your
I've always wanted to. Yeah, and I've I've always wanted to learn how to actually design a PCB, and you can get those actually, printed out fairly inexpensively once you have that. But that's something I don't know really much about doing. I know there are some tutorials out there, but I think that would sort of be a part of my, my final thing is learning how to build a PCB. And then, I mean, from there, you can really see how valuable this whole kind of like journey was. I mean, any sort of tech product that you would want to design, whether it's some IoT thing or what have you, you're going to need to like consider the 3D space that it occupies and the case. And, you also have to think about the actual circuit behind it all and all that stuff. So it's sort of a nice way to learn this type of stuff where you actually come out with something useful. So that's my final thing I want to do is that. And then also another consultant at Chariot Solutions gave me this Joe Berger. It's an old,
what is that?
It's an old Kinesis.
Wait, put that back up again. Wait, here we go. Go ahead.
And I have the
Kinesis. Oh, okay. That's the mic. Is that the Microsoft thing? Or is this some other?
I don't think it's Kinesis is its own company, I believe. But,
okay, yeah.
And I'm not sure where Joe got it from. It may have been somewhere Microsoft related. I'm not too sure. But so they actually still sell this keyboard. I know that they've made some updates to like the actual design, and like I have this somewhat taken apart now, so you can kind of see.
Ooh.
Yeah, but what I think is fun about this is like it's I don't know. I kind of want to redo this. I want to take out the switches and put in, the switches that I like. And then this also has that PS2 connector, like how you were shown on the old IBM.
Right.
And I'd like to maybe learn how to, just get that to go to some kind of USB-C or
so you're a Jawa basically from Star Wars is what we're saying. You take scrap, you take it apart, and then you turn it into some really cool keyboard. But while you're doing it, I'm assuming like you're harvesting parts now or harvesting the board and everything and trying to figure out what can I do. When you build keyboards, I wanted to bring this up kind of as one of our last things because I think we covered everything else. But you do have to ultimately put something together to decode your keys because basically it's a matrix of voltages, right?
Oh, yes.
So let's talk about that. So you're using Arduino Teensies, is that right? Or Teensy boards?
Yeah, it's Teensies. I don't know if it's...
Oh, that's the software.
I don't think they're made by Arduino. Yeah, right. But it's... So yeah, Teensy, I think for my hand-wired one, it was the Teensy 2.0, not the Plus Plus. The Plus Plus is larger than that. But so the kind of general idea behind any keyboard, and this was what I liked about hand-wiring the keyboard, was that it really showed me, and I'll show this here, is so like that, if you look at a Teensy 2.0, you'll notice that there are less pins, there are less pins in there than there would be keys that you're going to have. Like you're never going to have enough. So the way that you kind of solve that is you map it out by the rows and the columns. So each key that you press is actually a unique, like it completes the electrical circuit of a column in a row. And there's a diode in there. So the direction that it's, it's going to go from whatever row to column. That's going to say, okay, that's how we know what key this is. And so the easiest way to do that is there's an open source package called QMK. So it's open source firmware for keyboards. And I actually think you can use it for other peripherals. I was seeing online the other day, some people were using that as like they were building a mouse, for example, and they had used QMK for that. So I'm not super sure of the internals, but you could use it completely without ever touching code or necessarily even installing things. If you Google like QMK configurator,
I have it on here. Let me bring it up real quick.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Right
Yeah,
there?
Yep. Okay. And so, like, if you are, let's say that you're flashing a keyboard that you have the PCB for, so you could sometimes come on here and flash it with that. But if you hand wire a keyboard, I don't know if it's this website or if it's another one, but all you have to do is really map out your columns and your rows and let it know, like, hey, at this column in this row, it's my A key, it's my B key, it's my, whatever. And then that's going to output for you just a file that you flash right on to the microcontroller. And it's pretty much good to go. Like the first time I did it with my hand-wired keyboard, and I was like, I don't know if this will work. And then I looked up, and it was like, Mac OS has detected a new keyboard. And I was like, yes. I did it. Yes.
Press your button, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And it worked, right? Everything came
It did. It did. Yeah, actually, yeah.
It's freaking cool.
Didn't expect it to at all, and But so yeah, I mean, it's really like you just map out what's in each one. I have for certain one of my keyboards had to kind of get down in there and
there you go.
Not necessarily even get into the code. I mean, really, if you wanted to
That's
understand it, you could just kind of use the JSON output. And so like
right.
A really big tool if you want to build your own keyboard is a website called keyboardlayouteditor.com. I think it may be, yeah, I would just Google it. Keyboard layout editor.
While we're doing this here. There you go.
This will, yeah.
Ooh.
And so then like you can just design your own keyboard however you want. And this will actually give you JSON output for whatever your keyboard layout is. And this will let you,
yeah. I'm sorry, the drop downs are great.
Oh yeah, that's fair. That's the,
there.
Yeah.
It's the big enter key. That's cool. Yeah. Okay. Right. So you can sit there and lay the whole thing out if you want to.
Yeah.
There's probably starters.
There's presets right there too. You'll find a lot of the kind of standard layouts here and some of the not so standards. Yes. That's full size layout there. Full size layouts have the numeric keypad on the right side. 70% or 10 keyless. You might see it abbreviated as TKL.
They don't have the number pad.
Yep,
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very cool. And so then you could download this thing and flash it to the thing, and as long as you built to the spec of that, right?
So this actually isn't really for QMK. This is more for which you might be able to. There might be a spot for you to do that somewhere in there. Actually, I need to kind of look into that. But you can take your layout. So this is what I did for mine. Is there was at the time, and last time I checked on this, actually, the website was down, and I deeply, deeply hope that it returns. It's like builder.swillkb.com, I think it is. And swillkb is someone on the kind of like geek hack forums and stuff who's just kind of, well known in the QMK. Oh, it is?
It's alive. Hold on, let me see.
Oh, that's great.
Here. Hold on 1 second here. See if we can get on there.
And so from there, and I know there's some other websites now. It is back. It is back.
It's alive.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is so great. So,
why do you like this? Talk about this.
So you can paste the JSON layout from keyboard layout editor here.
Oh.
And then you can kind of set some of the different, there's various different settings.
I'm just going to try it just for fun.
Set here. Yeah.
Doink.
And so, for example, like this keyboard that I built right here, I did this on here, and I had said that it was like a sandwich case is what it's called, because you can see it's layers of like acrylic and wood. This is stuff I just ordered off Pinocchio. But that builder website, what that'll do is it will give you like the SVGs, and it'll give it to you in a few other formats like DXF and some other kind of CAD style format, to where you can print out. So like if you see the kind of metal that I mounted all of the switches onto there, it'll give you the layout for that. As well as like if you specify that you want a sandwich case, it'll give you the layout for like your top layers of the case. So that in this case would be like the wood,
right?
And then there's like the bottom layers that has which not.
So then I
was hoping that was a little more flush up against there, but
that's okay. So then you send that off to like vendors, and they'll actually laser cut it or whatever. Oh,
right. So there's like Laser Boost, or like I used Laser Gist at the time. And a big thing kind of about building mechanical keyboards. So obviously I've given the like it's expensive at this time kind of warning. Maybe if more people were into it, it wouldn't be, but who knows if that would ever or not happen. But another thing is that a lot of times you actually are going to have to like wait for stuff a long time. And I mean, sometimes it's coming from like overseas, and that's going to take a while. Sometimes it's, like I said, it's a doubly niche community in my mind. So there's, if you do like the group buys, like essentially what that is that's some people being like, hey, like if you guys put up the money, I'll make a run of this, but it's going to obviously be expensive. And then you have to wait for it to happen. And then a lot of times someone produces something, and then a lot of people who do build keyboards want it. And so then it'll either be like sold out for a while, or it'll be on back order for a long time. So like from idea inception to actual completion, I want to say that my handwire keyboard took me like over a year to actually to acquire all the parts and to do all that. So
well, but the thing is, like, people will spend that kind of time on something they really value, that they're really kind of building up and getting exact what they want. There are people that are redoing cars, and they're looking for a carburetor for a 56 whatever, and they're waiting forever until one comes on and they can refactor, clean it up or whatever. So this is no different in terms of like interest and hobbies. It's just it's a cool one, because you also get to apply it to your day-to-day life when you're done. You can say, I made that, and I'm enjoying my experience in the computer so much more because I know I've built my keyboard to the specifications. Or it'll drive you nuts to say, I really wish that key was over slightly to the left.
Yeah, right. Or you might be like, wow, I still have no idea what I'm doing out there. But yeah, and I always say too, like, I don't like. I just think that it's also kind of a nice conversation thing, especially working with like all engineers and stuff. Obviously, people kind of take more an interest in stuff in it. But like even outside of that, I feel like you just get like a lot more questions about it whenever you talk about how you built it. It's something that. Like it's something that almost everybody uses almost every day, and then so I guess you kind of think when people are like, oh, you build those, like it kind of gets people's like minds going a little bit. It's like, how in the world do you even build that kind of stuff? And it's that's kind of the fun of it, I guess.
I wonder, if you're about a decade and a half younger, well, you're more than a decade and a half younger than me, so let's start there. But you're at least let's call it 2 decades. You're 2 decades too young to really have been in the early PC builder phase, right?
Yeah, right.
Because in the early PC builder phase, everyone, we could have gotten a Windows machine from Dell or whatever, a laptop that weighed 9 pounds, or a desktop before laptops were really good. But it was so much more satisfying to build the whole thing from the ground up. Because you could pick the case, pick the power supply, pick the drive you're going to use, pick the video you're going to use, and all that. And you got really good at that over time. This is the same kind of thing. We just have less and less things we can really spend time on like that we can actually practically use, because we have to tote our machines around. So no one's carrying around a tower machine. We all have laptops that are faster, but we have these really inferior keyboards on those laptops. So this is a really good thing to kind of talk through. Yeah, exactly.
And that's actually kind of why it's a good point. That's kind of actually why I ended up liking some of the smaller keyboards was like the plank ones that I have. I have 2 of those. Like those fit perfectly into a stethoscope carrying case, actually.
Oh, how cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So like perfect thing to just like toss into my bag and kind of take it wherever,
And still have a good typing experience while you're getting your work.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So Jack, for people who are just getting started, you sent a bunch of links. We'll put those in the comments on the YouTube video for when the live stream is rendered to YouTube, so people will get those there. And you mentioned a few sites, keyboardco.com and geekhack.org and wasdkeyboards.com.
Yeah, that's those were about my first one. I'm trying to think of any other ones.
Yeah, that's like if you want to like get a good keyboard, but you don't want to build it.
I'll give a little shout out to spacecat.design. So this is
spacecat.design.
Yeah, this is actually kind of a fun story. I needed like a really kind of specific PCB that I was looking for, and after kind of doing my searches on the internet, I was brought to spacecat.design. And then what was funny was whenever I actually ordered it, it was like your printing label has been printed at the Plymouth Meeting, post office, and so
it's nearby. Yeah,
exactly. Oh yeah, and I live in Conshohocken, so like right next door. And so then I immediately reached out and I was like, hey, like, are you in Plymouth Meeting? And he like instantly got back to me and was like, oh yeah, I couldn't believe it whenever I saw like how close that order was. So there's a ton of cool stuff on there. I'm trying to think of some other websites out there that you could look at. Drop.com. That's a big one, and they're kind of expanding their keyboard stuff. They have some really, really cool ones actually right now that you could build without any soldering. Those are going to be like the ones that they themselves kind of make and produce. I'm trying to think here.
Let me just like while we're just finishing up here, but I want to just share this for the video stream. Like this is what he's talking about with the caps and sets and things where you can look at the actual designs and those things.
Oh yeah,
cool. You had a lot of fun with this.
The biggest one of the big points I wanted to make was starting with a keycap set will help you. It'll just make your life easier because they're hard to make custom, and it's really hard to get to collect a matching set that you're going to be happy with from everywhere else. And actually sort of a whole nother side of this that I never even touched on is artisan keycaps. This is something that I'm personally not like super into, but there are people who make a ton of artisan keycaps, and I mean you can pay a ton of money for each keycap whenever you kind of get into that. Not that I like wouldn't buy or ever use them or anything. It just hasn't really been the
main focus of it.
Focus of mine yet, right? Yeah.
Right. Cool. Well, thanks so much for spending the hour with us to talk about this stuff.
Hopefully you got a few more. Yeah.
Hopefully you got a few more people that we
got all day about this.
Exactly. We get a few more people into it. So, but that's great. And really enjoyed talking to you today, Jack. Thanks so much.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. And for everyone, we'll be back next week. Our next week focus is going to be on UX design. We're going to bring Michael Geis in, one of our Chariot consultants that does UX stuff.
I'm kidding. I work with Michael like all the time. He's
it's like you again. Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine, so I had to.
Yeah, no, we're teasing him. So he's going to get in to talk about UX like we had the 15 minutes with. We're going to spend more time with him on the next show. So, and that's coming up. All right. And one thing. It's 1:00 p.m. Eastern for the one or two people that are watching this live at the moment who haven't turned off because they don't want to build a keyboard or aren't interested in the stuff we're doing. We'll go over to Apple. Personally, I am, to see the new announcement for the new iPhone. So just so you know, that's 1 p.m. Eastern. So by next week, we'll be able to talk about anything that came out of the Apple announcement. So just a quick note on that too. All right. Thank you again, Jack. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken.
And thanks again to Becca Redford for producing. And I'm Ken Rimple, and enjoy your week.